Hello. Thank you, Amy, for allowing me to join you today. My name is Diane Riley. I'm the Executive Director of the Supportive Housing Association of New Jersey, and I'm here today to talk about supportive housing. So let me just tell you a little bit about SHA, as we call ourselves. We've been in existence for 25 years. And we are a statewide nonprofit trade association. And that means that we have members, and we have members who are organizations. So our members are organizations. We don't have any individual memberships. So our member organizations are people who provide services for people with disabilities or barriers. We have housing developers as our members, and we have vendors who help with supportive housing, furniture providers, insurance brokers, architects, various people in the supportive housing arena. We do also write grants and provide a lot of resources to people, which is what I would like to speak to you about today. Even though we don't have individual members, many of our resources are important, and we provide those on our website. And for our members, we do offer education, we offer collaboration and networking, and we jointly advocate. We advocate for more housing and more opportunities for people to live independently in affordable homes throughout the state. So what is supportive housing? I'm sure you've heard about affordable housing, which I'm going to talk about, but supportive housing is a little bit different. It's more complicated. But for people with disabilities or barriers, supportive housing is incredibly important. It provides the affordable housing piece with services. They're married with services that offer people an independent way of living. An independent way of living as independently as anyone is capable of, in housing options of their choice throughout the state. That's the dream, right? Housing options that are very specific to an individual and what their needs are and their desires are, but also living where they want in communities alongside people who aren't disabled, and to take advantage of every aspect of being in that community and being a member of that community. So when we talk about supportive housing, we talk about supportive housing for a lot of different people. We talk about supportive housing for people who are aging. We talk about supportive housing for veterans. We talk about supportive housing for people with physical disabilities, and of course, people with mental health challenges or addiction challenges, and people with intellectual and developmental disability, and those who are coming out of a period of homelessness. So many people who are have experienced homelessness might have barriers like in trauma or things that have happened to them. It's not just an economic situation. So all of that is to say that supportive housing is important to many, many different people. And people aren't just one thing. I am a married person with children and grandchildren. I'm an ordained minister. I work for a nonprofit. I have many different facets to my life. And someone might be a veteran who has a physical disability, or someone who has a mental health challenge and an intellectual and developmental disability, or someone coming out of homelessness that does, as I said, have a trauma in their life. So we have many, many different, and all of that is to say that we're all aging, including me. So we have a lot of different barriers and different issues that supportive housing can help with. And we need to make that pie bigger. So when we advocate, and I'll say this a few times throughout, you can look at it through a lens that you're living through, but we want to make sure we increase the availability of supportive housing for everyone. Because when we do that for everyone, we increase it for our own group as well. So what do people need? What's unique? What do they need? People need their home to be affordable. Oh, rents are so high right now. Housing is so high. It's the biggest economic barrier to people's lives, everybody's life. We know it's a social determinant of health. So the first thing we want to say is whatever home we want to live in, it has to be affordable to us. And people with disabilities have challenges in affordability, right? Sometimes they're just living on SSI or just they rely heavily on their benefits. So affordability is very, very important. Another thing is we want to make sure it's available. It's available throughout the state. We don't want our affordable units or apartments or homes to be in only one place, right? Because we have our circle of support everywhere. Our families live in one place. We might have a job and we want to be able to get to that job. So we need affordable housing and supportive housing to be available everywhere throughout the state in all communities. We want it to be accessible, and in that, when I say accessible in this context, I want it to be accessible to me. I want to be able to find it easily, something that's also a challenge. I want to be able to apply for it easily. It shouldn't be complicated. So I want it to be accessible as possible to be able to access it and find it in the best way possible. The other thing we all need is accommodations, especially people who are disabled or who have barriers. We need certain accommodations, elevators, grab bars. We need it to be designed a certain way. It can't be a fifth floor walk up, and we have a lot of infrastructure in the state of New Jersey that's old. So we definitely want it to be accommodating to our needs, right? So those are all things that everybody needs. I want to now start to look on our website, and you can see it up here. It's www.shanj.org. We have a lot of different resources on our websites that I think are going to be important to you as you begin to look to be independent and move out of your parents' home and be able to plan a life. So I do want to say that most of our resources that we developed for people were developed with funding from the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities. And that is a fantastic organization. They fund many, many different important projects. And they also have a lot of different programs. So they have a regional councils for families and people to access each other and share information. And they do training and different kinds of really educational materials there. So that's really very important. And I would highly recommend you get involved with one of your regional councils. But they have training programs and advocacies, partners in policy, and many, many different programs that are important. But they did fund our resources, and we're going to talk about those resources today. Oh, so many resources on our housing hub. We had to create a specific hub on our website to house all of the resources we have developed in about 7 years or so. So we'll start and we'll go down the list and we'll show you each one of these, but we have many different resource types available. We have guides that we developed for housing, specifically housing around people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we have different bulletins that didn't get covered adequately in that resource guide, even though it's about 60 pages. We have videos we've created, we have training we've done, and we're going to talk about all of it today. And we're very excited to tell you about it. First, I want to start with where it all began, which is our journey to supportive housing. We developed that in 2014, so it is about 9 years. We started developing that. It took a few years to develop, and it's about 60 pages. We have it in hard copy, and we have it electronically, and we have it electronically in Spanish, as most of our materials also are in Spanish. And that is a guide which is somewhat dated now, but it really had it was a guide that was created, and it was ambitious. It was created to first say what kinds of things are available and what kinds of housing would we even like to see that might be available across the nation and even internationally, that might be something to aspire to. And we do go through different pieces of housing, different pieces of the puzzle that we have to put together to create that housing, whether it's a little bit on capital funding for housing affordability, or it's your services through the Division of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. We talk a little bit about SSI in there and your funding through the federal government. We just go through everything that you could ever want to know. And the best thing about that guide is that in the middle of the guide, I think this is the best part about it, is a sort of flow chart that says, what do I do first? Which is really, I think, going to be important to you, and it's still very applicable. And it starts with when I'm 18, this is what I do. And then I go apply here. And when I apply for my services through DDD, if I apply through this process and I get denied, what do I do? And it just goes through a little flow chart of what to do. And it is really, really good. I think people pull that out and they use it. And I will say, you cannot read this guide in one sitting. You won't be able to absorb all of the information. So the good thing is, if you have it, or you can look at it online or download it, you can read pieces of it, go back to it, check in, read again the pieces of it, and begin to absorb it. It's a process. You have to take it as a process. And I will say that we do have physical copies of that still available. I have some in my office in South Orange. And the Council on Developmental Disabilities in Trenton has copies of it. I don't have the resources to mail it to everybody who wants it, but it's available to be picked up. Or if you're involved in an organization that might want to come and get a box, I do still have them, and they have them too. I think the council might be able to mail you a copy, but electronically, the good part about the electronic copy is that you can go link to some of the links work, and you can go to directly to other websites. So I think it's useful. You can also print the pieces that you want that's important to you, and not the rest. So both are helpful. It was a very popular guide. As I said, we distributed over 6,000 copies of it, more now. And we also did training when it first came out. And so we went to a lot of different organizations to go through it, and that was very important at the time. We did get commissioned to create a smaller guide that just had information about services. Still has that great spreadsheet though, that flow chart that I talked about, and that's a service guide that's also available. Much smaller, but it also has some information for people under 18. So that might be useful to take a look at. And then we created a companion guide, and that really just was filled with stories of different housing options that people were able to create. I'm going to go through a little bit of that, but it is a nice companion read. And then we continue to do other things. But these are our basics. Again, the Journey to Supportive Housing was our very first resource, and we're still proud of it. So what kinds of housing? I'll just go through a few options that are available in that read. And, it is good to expand your mind, to think what might be useful for you. Traditionally, we can start with the most independent option, which is an independent apartment, right? Yes, you can have an independent apartment if your budget allows it, if you have the service dollars, if you have the capability or want to aspire to that, if you have the right supports. So apartments are really used by many, many people who do their own services and create their services together. They could also be serviced by an organization, but mostly the apartments that are built for supportive housing and are independent do have the accommodation that I mentioned. You see Ken here. He is a developer, and he is showing you the accommodation in shelves. Oftentimes, counters are lower, there are grab bars, there are roll-in showers. Things are really accommodating to people, and those individual apartments can have that. You can also have shared living opportunities. We have people live together like roommates, and some people are two people who are disabled living together, and sometimes there's one person disabled and one person not, and they share an apartment. So that helps a lot economically, you might imagine, with your budget. It also could be arranged that people, you can have that person live with you and do some support for you. So maybe, they're making sure they're there at nights for you, but their rent is a little cheaper, so it's helpful for them to live with you. They might do some errands for you. So you really work that out with the person, but there are shared living arrangements that could work for people. We have support families, who's sort of like foster families. There are families who would maybe have had a child who was disabled and want to offer their home to people, and they could to live with them. They get a certain funding from the state to be able to do that, and that is an option that works for people. Of course, there is the traditional group home, which usually looks like a house that is a one-story house, and that's usually 4 people living together, usually serviced, but not always serviced, by one agency that provides people with economic viability for them to live, but also socialization. So some people would like to live with other people, and it provides that community living. And that's an option that many, many, many people use, but not the only option. We also have intensive specialized group homes where there's people who have more severe medical needs can live, and those accommodations can be brought in and done effectively in a group home. So we have all of these, and I have that. And sometimes most people live with their families for many, many years, and they get services brought in, and then they begin to think of living more independently. But sometimes that is thrust upon them, and I have an option here. It reminds me of Frances. We'll just say it's Frances, and Fran lived with her aunt for many years. It's a common story. She lived happily with her aunt for many years, but then her aunt passed away, and she wanted to live more independently. She aspired to that, but it didn't happen right away. And there was a time where she had a lot of different things happen to her. She decompensated, and she had some physical challenges, and it wound up that she wound up in a nursing home, which wasn't her best option, and she was not happy about it. But with some support from some brokers and independent people and her circle of support, they kind of worked with her to decide what she needed and wanted. And she was able to put together a different option. And now she lives independently in an apartment in a development that has other people living with various different barriers. And she lives there with her supports, and she goes, and she physically recovered and was able to then walk with a walker and not always need a wheelchair. And physically, she was a lot healthier. And now she has different options she does. And there was a program that helped her move from that nursing home in New Jersey. So we're lucky and fortunate in many ways to live in New Jersey, because there are programs available. But Fran is now happily living and going to her book group and meeting friends. So I want to talk a little bit about our resource bulletins on our website. Our resource bulletins, we did 4 of them. And the reason we did it is because we didn't have, believe it or not, in the 60 or 70 pages in that guide, we didn't have enough space to talk a little bit more in depth about some topics like affordable housing and rental assistance, which you'll be needing if you want to live independently, or more independently, and even not in a group home, you're going to be looking at some kind of housing voucher. And we talked a little bit more about assistive technology and employment. So we took all those topics and we created 2 to 3 page bulletin. They are not available in print, except if you download it and print it yourself, because there's only a few pages, but they are really good and they're a little more up to date, and we could change them easier than our hard print bulletin housing guide. So we did create those, and they are also available in Spanish, and there are 4 of them. So I'm going to go through them a little bit now. One is a whole bulletin on affordable housing. So I want to just tell you what affordable housing is, because people usually talk about affordable housing and rental assistance together, and they're not the same thing. So affordable housing is housing that is developed with some usually government assistance in some way, whether it's federal or state or local assistance, that makes it easier to develop that property. And in exchange for that kind of financial assistance or accommodation, they agree to keep rents at a lower level than what the market would bear. And they agree to do that for 30 years. And it's a very, very, very important piece of the housing puzzle for affordable housing and supportive housing. So we are always advocating for more affordable options for people, more funding for the creation of affordable housing. You probably have read we're in a housing crisis. In many ways, that's because we didn't build enough affordable housing over the years. And now we're kind of behind the 8 ball in creating it. So we have more people who need affordable housing than there are units, probably 1 in 4. Only 1 in 4 people live in affordable housing that want it. So we do need to create more, and I'll just say that. So that is it. And usually where you see that is there's a lot of building that's gone on in the last couple of years. You can see it all over, probably in your town. You see housing buildings going up, and there's a piece of those that are affordable because they have gotten some accommodation to build them. And so they will market those affordable units, and you'll see the rental rates of them, and you'll see them lower than what most rents are in the market are available for. So you might see, and they have usually tiers. So if you think that the income in the area, the average income in your particular area, say, is $60,000, they might make that affordable to people who only have about 30% of that income, and they will create rents affordable to that income, and that's what you'll see. And so when you apply for those, very scarcely, a lot more people apply than actually can get into that apartment. But I would highly recommend that you apply. You do keep that process going, because people do bubble to the top and get into those units. You will have an affordable housing unit, and you'll be able to live there, and they're really very accommodating and beautiful. So take a look as you drive around your town and buildings. Don't be afraid to inquire of that project, if there will be affordable housing in it, and how you might find out about it, because that is the way you do it, especially in areas you want to live in. So you have to be kind of proactive in that way. I want to talk about rental vouchers. I'm just going to move this because I'm not really sure if you see it, but the rental vouchers are different, okay? Rental vouchers are vouchers that also are available through some funding, whether it's the federal government or the state government. And once you have one of those vouchers, it allows you to pay a reduced rate on rent. And that rent doesn't mean you have to be in an affordable housing development. You could be, and that make you even pay low, have it be lower, but you could go to any apartment really that's within a certain payment standard. It's not like you can go anywhere, but within a certain payment standard, you can go to any apartment, rent from a landlord, a private landlord, and with a rental voucher, right? So what that voucher will allow you to do is only pay 30% of your income for that rent, and the rent and the landlord gets the 100% of their rent, and the rest of the rent is paid by a government entity. So it's okay for the landlord because the landlord is made whole and they get their whole rent. They also have a guaranteed rent because the government's a pretty good bet on paying their rent, right? So we can market it that way. We can go and make a case for ourselves to live there, because in many ways, once they get through the sort of red tape of being signed up for it, they will get their check every month, guaranteed. But it is pretty exciting that you will only pay 30% of your income. Now, if you're on SSI and your income's, $900 a month, let's say, you really only pay $300 for rent. So it makes you able to afford an apartment in many different places throughout the state. So that's what a voucher is. Now, there are different kinds of vouchers, and I'm not going to go through all of them today. There are federal vouchers. Federal vouchers are important because after a year, you can move anywhere in the United States. So you could once you get one of the federal vouchers, you can move somewhere else out of New Jersey if you want. You have state vouchers, which obviously are only for the state of New Jersey. And then you have state vouchers that are paid for through the Department of Human Services. And that's important just to know where your funding comes from. And it's important to note where your funding comes from because you can advocate for more funding. That's what we do. We have to advocate for more funding or better rent rates or different things. So I say that I always want to put that in there. So the easiest voucher to get is from the Department of Human Services, a DDD voucher. And that voucher, if you have to go through your support coordinator, and which you will have when you're an adult, and they will help you determine if you have the right kinds of supports for that, and if you could afford it, and it's your needs are met. So there's a process, but if you get that voucher, you then could find an apartment and do that. There is a process, as I said. It is managed by an entity called the Supportive Housing Connection, the bane of my existence, only because it's so close to our name that people call me and think I'm Supportive Housing Connection, which I'm not. So I still get calls like that. But it is Supportive Housing Connection manages those vouchers. They pay the landlords. You have a lease. It manages the administration of those vouchers, but you do work through the division and your support coordinator to get those vouchers. And you, of course, always start with your NJCAT to determine the level of service you will get, and Medicaid supports home and community-based services and all of those things. So those vouchers are probably going to be important to you as you move forward, and they will help you get your home. There's another bulletin, and I'm going to mention it. It's on assistive technology. Just checking the time. We're doing good here. And assistive technology, we talk about that because it's very important. Assistive technology, you're probably using it every day on your phone, right? Your phone has assistive technology. I use it to drive anywhere in my, Google Maps or whatever I'm using. Many people use Siri to find out anything, what the weather is. Hello, tell me what the weather is. Alexa, or whatever you're saying, tell me, anything you can ask it. So we live in a world where we use assistive technology all the time, but it is incredibly important for people who have disabilities or barriers. For people who don't have disabilities, technology makes things easier. But for people with disabilities, technology makes things possible. And it will be important to you as you become independent adults. So we have a lot of different technology, and it's, the state will pay for technology and different devices. We have homes that have technology in it, which will turn the light, or voice activated, they turn the lights on. They turn the lights out, they open the blinds. We have technology that helps people monitor you, or can check in with you, med management, all kinds of things. So you don't have to have a person intruding in your life. You can just, but you have that security. So that's all of these are examples of technology, and we talk about all of them. It helps with mobility, obviously, electronic wheelchairs, lifts, all kinds of things. And just will make your life of independence possible. The other thing we have, and we have smart homes, we talk about that, that's a form of technology, and that is very important in terms of everybody, in terms of security, cameras, electronic locks, alarms, safety. We have safety in terms of shutting your phone or your oven off, automatic things that reduce the idea of having any kind of accident. We have smart home technology that saves energy conservation, and that's even more important for all of us as we go through our climate change. We really, really want to use technology to the best of our ability. But it does reduce probably the biggest cost in living independently, which is in people, in service and people to help us. And technology does reduce the need for face-to-face people to support us. And also, like I said, as I remind you, it does allow for you to not have, sort of big brother in your lives if you want to live independently and without people in your apartment. But it's either way, you have the budget, you can choose. And that, that is very, very important in terms of a person-centered design to get what you need and what you're comfortable with. But technology gives you options. I want to talk to you a little bit about employment, and we're really excited about what's happening. And sometimes things happen in around you, and it helps. So the pandemic was a terrible, terrible thing. But what it did was, it did allow for people to change the way we do business. And we are much more comfortable with people working from home, obviously. I'm working from home now. And because of that, it opened up a whole new world, and in an increase for employment for people with disabilities. So people are working from home. They don't have to use transportation, which can be cumbersome for people with disabilities. They can tap into their work and do everything they want to do. So employers are much more accommodating and much more open to having people with disabilities work for them. And I'm really excited about that. The other thing is that because of the pandemic and because a lot of people have retired and different things, we have low unemployment, which means, businesses are very open to finding people and employees wherever they can. And so again, looking to that group of people they have overlooked in the past. So we're excited that that is opening up for people with disabilities. And we do have a lot of, we've always had, and we continue to make it better in New Jersey. We've had a lot of accommodating programs for people to help them become employed in New Jersey. And we have job sampling, we have job coaches available to you. employers must provide, we have laws that protect you and help you. So employers must provide by law a reasonable accommodation. We also have programs that help you with your services. So one of the big barriers that people really kind of looked at was that I don't want to lose my benefits. I can't lose my Medicaid. I can't lose, my SSI. I don't want to lose any of them. And so that stopped a lot of people from working, which is not ideal for them, spiritually, physically, mentally, anything. So we have created programs that will allow you to keep your benefits, and they just keep getting better in terms of the levels and the levels of income that you can do. But we are a workability state, so we provide programs that will help you keep your benefits and make money and provide and help you get a job. So it's a wonderful New Jersey Medicaid coverage, New Jersey workability. NJ Wins is counseling services. It provides a safety net for SSI and SSDI, so you won't lose those benefits. So we really, really do a good job of pulling that all together to allow you to work in jobs that you might enjoy, and whether it be part-time or full-time, and therefore increase your income, having more options in housing. I want to talk a little bit about our videos. Videos are my favorite, I'll just say. We have housing videos that we created. So first we did that companion guide where you could read about situations, but then we provide some videos to actually show you some different options for people and how they created and speaking their own voice and the voice of their family. And so I will highly recommend, we have 4 of them, videos. We have Matt and Dan Share a Home. I'll show you a little bit of that in a minute. We have a supportive housing video, and that is a very large development in Irvington. And it has market rate apartments, it has independent apartments, and the services in a piece of those independent apartments are through the Arc of Essex. And they show you and talk through, once you learn more about the kinds of service supports you're eligible for, it talks through using them in kind of a mix and match way. I think it does a really good job of pulling those things together. And then we have a great video of a person in a modular home, a small manufactured home in New Jersey, living independently, a person with autism. And what I like about that video is it has the person who lives there, and he's telling you how much he loves to live there, but it also his mother talks about different options he had. So when I want to put in your an idea in your thought processes, and that is, you don't have to pick the absolute right model of home and housing situation for you forever. That is just too hard. You're going to be evolving, you're going to be changing. So I want you to think that you might try a model, and then move to a different one. Once you learn more about yourself and what's available, and you grow. So and she does a really good job of saying, we tried this and that worked for a while, but here's what happened. Or we tried this and that was good, and now we've tried this and this seems like a really good match for many reasons that we learned along the way. So I highly recommend you looking for that one. And then we have one that shows you, as I mentioned, we have sort of a medical group home where it shows you different lifts and things that in terms of technology. And it really uses a lot of technology in that home. So if you want to see that, that's another video. They're only about 5 minutes each. So I'm going to show you Matt and Dan Share a Home, because it's really a great video, and it talks about really a person-centered approach, and someone really using their independent thought, mixing, matching together some of the things they've done. So here you go.
Matthew has autism. Took a while to find that out. Well, there are 136 categories of developmental disabilities, and he's got a few of them. Matthew's mom, Linda, was sick and dying, and suddenly I had to care for everything. She had taken care of all of our matters, all the house matters, and managed Matthew's life to a fairly well. She was really on the case. But then suddenly I had this responsibility on my hands. I called a support broker. I said, hey, we need more help. And she said, oh, I've got somebody, I think. Just placed her daughter in her own home, and Carmen now needs a job and a place to live. I just decided that was the time to make the move and to find a place for Matthew and maybe me and sell that house. And they found this place. We made a deal, moved in, and it's worked out very, very well. They all slipped in here like into a nice glove. You know, everything was so smooth right from the first day. The place was operating at a deficit. I was using Matthew's, what little was in his trust to pay the balance, and I tried to economize and all, but we were just eating it up. It's too expensive. It's a nice place, but for one guy, it's too much. And we're very lucky to have friends who have a young man in a similar situation. You have two young men and two sets of parents, and both have had been this experience and in various degrees of letting go. And if we weren't really compatible, it wouldn't be, it'd be hard. It was like music. It all worked so well.
Oh, Dan is a wonderful guy. He's full of energy, and he makes people smile when he's in a good mood, and that's a lot of the time. He's also obsessive. He gets really stuck about everything happening in its place. At age 21, they were eligible to be moved into group homes, the most affected ones, the lowest functioning people. They gave him a chance to move into a group home, and we looked at a couple, and they were okay, but I just wanted something that was more family-like, if possible. Not too long after his name reached the top of the list, we heard that Tom's wife, who we knew was very ill, had passed away, and we met with Tom, and we found out that, in fact, he had sold his house, and he and Carmen and Matt had all moved to this condo. And he at the same time said, you know, I'm running a deficit every month paying for this empty room, and which I no longer live in. In a way, it's a lot simpler because, you know, one family owns the place and the other one is a renter. We've gotten a supported housing connection voucher through SHC and DDD together. So that's based on 1/3 of the agreed on maximum rent, market value rent for a place like this. This isn't a licensed group home, but it still had to meet, because of the subsidy voucher, it had to meet minimum living standards. Dan's now able to transit back and forth. He's gotten used to that routine too. And there are workers that come in for Matt and workers that come in for him. And, you know, they are become buddies to a certain extent, but Matt and Dan are really somewhat on a par, even though Matt has much more language. And so Matt asks the questions and Dan supplies the answers over and over and over again until finally Dan says, no more questions.
So I hope you enjoyed that. I always enjoy it when I hear it. But you can see that those two situations were people who worked it out for themselves. They're self-directed, that's a term, so that you can create your own vision, right? And you manage your own budget and your service dollars, and you do it the way you want. It's more work, but you can create options for yourself. As you hear in that a little bit about what we talked about, a voucher, actually paying 1/3 of your income, so on the rent. But you know, it can be worked out. It's a roommate situation. They both have disabilities, but they share a service worker who lives with them. And it works out great for them. It's just a situation that works. So there's options out there, and I hope you'll explore them. So let me just say a few more words. We were able to get the last grant we really received from the council was to create a training for professionals a little bit more to be more experienced in housing information. So we created a curriculum that was based on a New York curriculum. And it was, we trained 33 people, 35 students, 32 professional agencies, and we had 15 hours of training. And this is some of the things they learned along the way. You can see the curriculum that we did through them. This was during the pandemic, and they found it very, very helpful. So it went through services, SSI, went through how to create housing on a budget, housing options on a budget. It went through universal design and direct support services. It did all of that. And it was very successful. And the reason I'm mentioning is because on our website, you see housing navigators, and we have those people listed. So when I say supportive housing, I wish I could answer every call that people make. We get a lot of them. We are very small. And my main job is to support my member organizations. Okay. So I can't always call people back to answer their questions, but our navigators can. Okay. Our navigators can. And so we have them listed on our website, how to contact them. And we have them in North, South, and Central. And I will say that there's about half of them are listed right on the page. And then there's another PDF to open for more. And there's reasons for that. But just so you know, the ones on the page are not the only ones. There's a PDF to open and there are more. So I highly recommend that if you really, really have questions, once you get your services, you receive your services and you have access to a support broker or a support coordinator, that you look to some of these people to help you. And I just want to end with a couple of different housing developments that I'll mention, just to open your mind to different things. This is in Cherry Hill, so Camden area. And this is a very large development with 160 apartment units, and it's all affordable. And it's all supportive. But some of the people who live there have intellectual and developmental disabilities, and some of the people who live there have are just aging. So it's that kind of development. But I also want to say that they don't. What's interesting, a really beautiful development. What's interesting is that they have units that are independent apartments, and then they have also group homes, which are like cottages, which you wouldn't be able to it's not traditional, but they're really, really beautiful, built into it seamlessly. So of course, all the accommodations, common rooms and all kinds of things in that. So that's one development I wanted to show you. Another development, very, very different, Fort Lee, New Jersey, right? Urban area. And this is a development that has 66 market rate apartments, just anybody renting as the market will bear, very expensive these days. But they also have affordable units. And then they have, of those affordable units, they have supportive apartments, right? So really wonderful supportive apartments, independent apartments for supportive housing. And then amongst that are group homes, which you would never think there was a group home in an apartment, but there they are. And it's really seamlessly built into it. So maybe above that, you might have a 2-bedroom apartment, but underneath that, you'll have a group home, you know, and it's in the same footprint. So very, very seamless, integrated options. So I just wanted to give you a few of those ideas that they're everywhere, and they do exist. And I hope you will explore some of these as you get older and find your dream home. And so I will just say that's my email, but I usually get to my emails, but I just can't always get to all of them again. But that's our website. Please take advantage of all the resources we've discussed today. And I'm really happy to be here with you today.